On August 26, trains near Moscow were blown up.
Moscow and St. Petersburg are paralyzed by the explosions. The AFU are blowing up train stations and airports. Railways have been sabotaged. Boom, bada boom. The AFU are striking Rostov, the Moscow region, Moscow, Samara, and petrochemical facilities.
There are drone wreckage on the tracks. 132 trains have been delayed.
People are spending the night at train stations. Operation Web continues.
Railways and power plants are being blown up. It really went off, didn't it? Right by the bridge. Collapse. The entire city of Moscow is now completely left without any power whatsoever. A total and absolute blackout has occurred. Planned carpet is in the sky.
Sheremetyevo is canceling hundreds of flights.
Domodedovo.
Passengers are having meltdowns in St. Petersburg and Moscow. Chaos at the airports. A series of powerful and devastating A factory in St. Petersburg is burning brightly. Summer action.
Breaking news, friends.
A series of explosions in Moscow, St. Petersburg, the Moscow region, and other regions of Russia. Plan carpet has been implemented at Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, and Domodedovo.
There are large-scale evacuations there.
And these are the kinds of lines.
Huge crowds of disgruntled Muscovites.
Please, calm down! You really need to calm yourselves down. What exactly are you all doing over there at this very moment?
We've been here for 2 days.
Here, look, just as planned. In the Moscow region, rockets are crashing into apartment buildings. There's no paving by the building. Something definitely hit there. Seriously, right here with us? I live there, and something hit there. What do you mean the roof is on fire? Wait, is the roof actually burning? Seriously? Don't you think we're turning into Donbass?
And basically, in the bedroom, we were really lucky because Moscow's air defense worked against Moscow apartments. So it's important to have a strong, good curtain.
The glass basically flew straight into it all at once. And in St. Petersburg and the regions near the city, military factories were attacked. Burn brightly so it absolutely doesn't go out. Right now, at this very moment, there are dedicated firefighters and emergency ambulances here on the scene. I think a sharp, dangerous shard just flew off. Ukraine is actively preparing its advanced ballistic and cruise missiles so that they can effectively reach crucial and significant military targets within the bustling capital city of Moscow, the broader Moscow region, and the historic city of St. Petersburg. 2 explosions occurred in the morning near the Desantnaya Bay area outside Vladivostok. Previously, large landing ships of the Pacific Fleet conducted exercises there. Friends, glory to the armed forces of Ukraine. And the cherry on top, a coup d'etat is being prepared in Russia. Moreover, the elites in Putin's inner circle are involved in this.
Catherine III.
Sources from the VCHK Gubo public channel have confirmed that Putin's closest advisor is promoting the idea that his daughter should become the new head of Russia as early as 2026. The advisor to the Russian dictator Mikhail Kovalchuk is actively convincing Putin himself that his daughter, Ekaterina Tikhonova, should take this role. Insiders claim that one of these women should run in the early presidential elections of 2026 as an independent candidate. We will discuss all of this with top analyst Oleksandr Demchenko right now.
Russia is paralyzed.
Drones are striking Rostov, Moscow, the Moscow region, Samara, and petrochemical facilities. There are drone debris on the tracks. 132 trains have been delayed. People are spending the night at train stations. The carpet plan is in effect in the sky. Sheremetyevo is canceling hundreds of flights.
Domodedovo. Passengers are in a panic.
There is even video footage. There is chaos at the airports in St. Petersburg and Moscow.
There is panic in Istanbul.
Flights are cancelled, luggage is lost. Luxury settlements in the Moscow region are flooded. And in Moscow, I've overflowed my banks. In general, Moscow is going underwater, just like it used to happen with St. Petersburg.
And in Novorossiysk, oil tankers are exploding.
The Kremlin is so afraid that Putin himself has ordered the FSB to inspect every vessel.
Is this a new phase of the war or a total collapse within Russia?
We'll break it down together with top analyst Oleksandr Demchenko. Sasha, hello? Hello, Dasha? Hello, everyone. I've got some good news for you today. I suggest we start with the railways because we're hitting the railways. We're hitting the energy sector. And right now there's a collapse not only in aviation but also on the railways. What do you think? You want to start with the railways, but I want to start with Putin, you see? I'll allow myself to do that. You see, Dasha, you say the railways are paralyzed, the airports are paralyzed. I keep sitting here thinking to myself, God, when will Vladimir Putin be paralyzed?
Can you imagine, we wake up, Putin is paralyzed, Putin has been paralyzed.
Power in the country shifts. The question is, to whom? So I think, judging by the leaks, tomorrow the negotiations begin, the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia.
So, to whom does the power transfer?
The power goes to his daughter.
It turns out Medinsky. Either he's sleeping with her, or they're friends, or he's just putting ideas into her head.
But Vladimir Medinsky, as it turns out, has become the closest associate of Ekaterina Tikhonova, Vladimir Putin's daughter. It turns out she's now also the main person in charge of ideology. We just couldn't figure out what exactly is Medinsky doing in that delegation in Istanbul.
Why is he always the one leading it?
Now it's clear why?
Turns out the daughter put him there.
I don't know what kind of relationship they have, romantic or not, but it's obvious that this partnership will go far.
As for the railways, obviously Ukraine, they were shouting so loudly, and now they're saying there will be a new wave, a new offensive in a month or a month and a half. So where is it? What happened to this offensive? Did it all fizzle out, fail, get stuck? Yeah, they promised to take Sumy, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia. So where is it? And how did it go? So what? To reach the borders of Donetsk region? So where is it? And how did it go? And what then? Why are there strikes on the railways? Let me explain. We are disrupting, directly disrupting Dasha. Every single day we will disrupt day after day, and harder and harder and harder. Every single day we will keep hammering them. Offensive plans are being disrupted. The summer-autumn campaign is already being derailed, and groundwork is being laid to bring Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Because if in this current year he still doesn't manage to acquire precisely what he had originally intended to achieve, then he will inevitably have to. They will undoubtedly compel him to come to the negotiating table, and he will reluctantly sign a peace agreement, but it will only ever be a temporary pause in the ongoing war. Nothing more than that, truly. But this is the beginning of a fateful stage. And I think that the coming days will be the most turbulent, essentially, in terms of the war, and the most decisive in terms of the war. And I believe that the finale of this Trump ultimatum will be a big fireworks show, a grand salute. Putin will be sitting in Beijing, watching the fireworks over Moscow. As all of Moscow explodes and burns where Domodedovo is, the pagoda of Sergei Kuzhugetovich Shoigu will be set ablaze by rockets. I think if anyone believes that Ukraine will strike Shoigu's house with rockets, no, Ukraine doesn't need to do that. But Putin does need it. Putin will hit Shoigu with anti-missiles, then blame everything on Ukraine, and so on. You mentioned the FSB, that all the ports are coming under FSB control. That's important. Indeed, Putin has expanded the scope of martial law. Previously, for some reason, he imposed martial law only on Ukrainian territory. So the Ukrainian regions that are occupied are Crimea, all of Donbas, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia. So that's where he has imposed martial law. And even in Crimea, I think not completely. And now he's extended martial law to the ports as well. So what happened? Why did he extend it to the ports? What does the FSB have to do with it? Let me explain. There's no money, no one to hold on, nothing, and no reason to hold on. The FSB gets the money. Where can the security forces get money? Well, they took over the ports, took over transportation, took over export, import, and cargo shipping. Soon they'll get into watermelons too, shipping and selling them by barge. Well, so the situation is turning out to be unfavorable. Well, for some inexplicable reason, I have a very strong feeling that there will be a truly harsh and significant response coming very soon. In the immediate near future, I genuinely think that Moscow will be burning and that numerous missiles will be flying through the air. I don't know if there'll be Ukrainian missiles or Ukrainian missiles with American components, but I think it's a fact that it will be a large combined attack. And the fact that Ksenia Sobchak is already coming out and telling everyone that the center of Moscow is shutting down and evacuating, the generals are moving air defense systems to their cottages in Rubliovka. This only shows, first of all, that half of the elite is dissatisfied with Putin. Secondly, that Muscovites need to run away. Putin abandoned them. He built himself a bunker there. It turns out recently he built himself a bunker underground in the rocks, built a bunker in the rocks, set everything up for himself there. He's not in Moscow. Putin has a mega bunker. Unbelievable. And so Ksenia Sobchak told everyone that there is an evacuation of central Moscow, an evacuation of the business center, an evacuation of the security forces. Everyone knows everything. Everyone is moving everything out. They will defend their homes. Putin is gone. Well, there's only one thing left to wait for, a missile strike and the arrest of Ksenia Sobchak. There's nothing else to expect in Moscow, in my opinion.
About Rubliovka and the air defense systems, so do we really understand that Putin's inner circle on Rubliovka is bringing in private air defense systems, or are these state-owned air defense systems?
Of course, they're state-owned. Why on earth would they have private air defense systems? They took them, they have air defense systems. The air defense protects Putin. Putin is gone. So what are they supposed to do with these air defense systems now? Why would they bother protecting the Kremlin or Red Square? The bigger and more spectacular the explosion, the better it is for them. That's exactly why they've now taken these air defense systems and sent them to themselves. But they're making a mistake by doing that. Just today, he went after the vice governor of the Bryansk region. I think it was the Bryansk region. He also stole from the dragon's teeth, from all those defensive structures and so on. He already got rid of the old one, shot him himself. First he raped him, then he shot him. He didn't want to pull the trigger, so he had to beat the person to death. He also went after representatives of the Bryansk region. And in the Bryansk region, that's also a border area, that's also generals. So they're doing this in vain. As soon as Putin overhauls the entire border area, replaces all the ministers involved with them and the security officials who were mixed up with them, and then he'll go after the generals who stole air defense and missile defense systems and set them up by their Dashas for protection. But the fact that they're doing this signals only one thing, Dasha. It signals that they don't care about Putin. If there's a coup in Moscow, a government coup, if tanks start rolling toward Moscow, they won't care about that either. If, say, the collective Rotenberg brothers or if Demchenko and the Rotenbergs decide to do something to flip the chessboard in the Kremlin, to stage a coup and remove Putin and his Kovalchuks, no one will stand in their way. And the generals won't interfere. They'll only support it. This just shows the complete decay and fragmentation of the Russian Moscow authorities. That's it, nothing more. And you tell me, you're sitting here not even smiling. Do you want missile strikes on Moscow or not?
I think every Ukrainian wants that. These are rhetorical questions. Everyone knows the answers to them.
Well, will they happen or not? So what does your intuition and your knowledge tell you?
I don't know how much we depend on Europe and America when it comes to authorizing strikes. I don't know with American or European missiles on Russian territory, for example, on major cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. I don't know if we have enough of our own ballistic missiles in production from talking to military analysts for us to be able to do this independently. I really wish we didn't have to ask anyone, that we had so many ballistic missiles that we could just do this every night, 100 or 200 strikes. But the question is, as they say, do we have that capability?
That capability will appear soon. I'm telling you, closer to September, no one will be waiting 50 days. There will be a festive salute from the 3rd to the 4th of September. The calendar will be flipped. It's the 3rd of September again, then again the 3rd of September, and again the 3rd of September. Yes? But the point is, you see, as we get closer to the 3rd of September, it will get very hot in Moscow and St. Petersburg. There will be tremendous heat. The climate conditions will be absolutely terrible, and there will be nothing to breathe in Moscow and the Moscow region. But, Dasha, I think that even before that, there will be a whole series of important special operations by Ukraine, both to disrupt offensive actions directly in the rear, to sow panic and sabotage operations, and there will be retaliation for everything these stinking Russian occupiers have done recently, and for today's Odessa, and for Sumy, and for the recent attacks on Kiev, Lutsk, Ivano-Frankivsk, and the list goes on. This morning, people were writing to me. I was also broadcasting, and they asked, what about Kherson? Did you forget about Kherson? No, friends, we haven't forgotten about Kherson. That's our native Kherson, and no one is going to take it. Ukraine has liberated it and will never give it up to anyone. Kherson is Ukrainian, and we have not forgotten. And for Kherson, there will be a very, very harsh response.
Yes, everyone is already writing that, by the way. Shoigu has disappeared somewhere. And the question is, where is Shoigu? You told me about this as well.
In the morgue. Oh, Lord, I shouldn't have said that. In the morgue, do you understand, Dasha? Well, it's clear that he's disappeared. Of course, maybe he's not in the morgue. Maybe everything's fine. But the point is, Dasha, he's scared. He's trembling. You don't even understand what's going on. Those people who are asking, Shoigu had an entire clan, a whole clan, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Emergency Situations, entire regions like Tuva. Everything was under Shoigu, absolutely everything, such multi-billion flows, and just like that. No more Shoigu. Now they're taking the very last of them. His governor, his vice governors, his deputies. They're wiping out all the local deputies, the local government in his home region. And soon, very soon, they'll go after his shamans, the ones he took Putin to. They'll wipe out all those shamans, cut off their heads, or send them like Shaman Gabishev to a psychiatric hospital. They'll take Dronov, that shaman, and send him there too, along with Mizulina. It's long overdue. Putin doesn't need them. But you see, Dasha, Shoigu has disappeared, vanished. He might show up, or maybe not. Maybe he went to China, maybe to North Korea. They say they're closing down the most elite resort there. It's the only one, the most exclusive resort in Pyongyang. They'll have to close it soon. Kim Jong-un has no money. He gave everything to the Russian Federation. Maybe Shoigu is already there. Maybe he's soaking his feet somewhere near Kim Jong-un. It's safer for him there. Believe me, it's safer for him there than next to Putin. I'm telling you, if there's a missile attack, Putin will take advantage of it. He'll fire his anti-missile right at the pagoda, at Shoigu's pagoda, at Shoigu's house. Well, then Shoigu will be gone. That's it. Because his situation is a mess. He's been destroyed, gutted by everyone. His entire circle has been wiped out. They've all been imprisoned, and some probably have disappeared, like his deputy Shvetsova, who vanished. A woman who was responsible for finances and was connected to the tax authorities, and for a very long time was the Ministry of Defense's contact with the FSB on Shoigu's behalf. Where is she, damn it? She outlasted the former Minister of Defense, partially outlasted Shoigu, and then disappeared without a trace. The person just vanished. Well, Timur Ivanov. And then next on the list, Chalikov. How many of these people are there already? And it just goes on and on and on. And I think that, of course, Shoigu will be torn apart, and publicly at that. It will be a public execution. And he has only himself to blame for it. A man who could have outsmarted Putin, but instead of outplaying him, instead of taking power into his own hands, instead of strengthening his own position, instead of trying to change the situation in Russia, and he could have done it, now he is left all alone in proud solitude. He says he feels cold and lonely, as he himself admitted. And the secretaries of the Security Council, just today, Putin's friend Podnosova, the head of an important court, yes, the main court in Russia, the Supreme Court, has died. So what? And Putin's classmate, she was 71, Putin is 72, Stalin was 73. So we're approaching that milestone. But it's important to note that Shoigu isn't particularly young either, and I genuinely believe they might arrange something significant for him as well, perhaps a new role or a different kind of arrangement. As Professor Solovey used to say, the heart of an old warrior might not withstand it. It really might not withstand it. Right now, strange things are happening in Russia. People are being thrown out of windows and from their apartments. People are committing suicide, shooting themselves, even though before that they were tortured, subjected to torture. And now Shoigu is disappearing too. Well,
and what do you expect from the negotiations?
I don't expect anything. Medinsky will strip and put on a striptease show, a striptease for the poor in front of the Americans once again. Why is Putin doing this? For the poor, and in quotation marks. Why is Putin doing this? He's trying to buy time. He's showing, look, I'm normal, I'm not crazy. See, I'm going to negotiations. Please, just no sanctions. No tariffs, please. Don't touch China. Let's meet in Beijing, the three of us. Me, you, and she. Let's talk on Tiananmen Square, where the communists killed a hell of a lot of people, crushed them with tanks. Let's meet, talk, settle Yalta, all that stuff. Trump and Melania don't need this. And Putin is stalling for time. Zelensky, he set the task of freeing prisoners of war and various detainees. Moreover, I think the issue of children is still on the agenda. It's the main one, or at least one of the main ones. And of course, this concerns the configuration of a future meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Putin is not agreeing to this yet. But Putin needs to buy time. But Putin doesn't have the opportunity to stall for time because no one is going to fall for all these negotiations with Ustinov-Medinsky anymore. And have you noticed that Kirill Dmitriev has disappeared? Well, in what sense disappeared? He's not negotiating anymore. He writes tweets, appears somewhere on various Russian media platforms, but he's not really there. He's not a negotiator. He negotiated, and now he's no longer needed. Investments are no longer of interest to the American side. Now it's Medinsky. Now Medinsky isn't of interest to Rutte or Trump or the Europeans or anyone. So what's next? But the point is, this imitation won't surprise anyone anymore, won't impress anyone, and no one will fall for it. With each passing day, Putin has less and less time. And if he doesn't sit down at the negotiating table himself and sign everything personally, he's finished. And the Russian regime is finished too. Do you understand? We talk about a coup d'etat, and many people say that a coup needs to be planned. But a coup happens just like that, in a matter of minutes, seconds, or hours. When, for example, the Tsar's own beloved son leaves the room and tragically doesn't see his father being brutally killed. When the powerful and ever-present Stalin's security detail doesn't come to him and, at the specific and direct request of Daria, lets him slowly and agonizingly die in a pool of his own bodily urine. When, with Andropov, some very strange things happen because of his kidney problems. When Mikhail Gorbachev is suddenly and unexpectedly locked up in Foros, or perhaps not locked up at all, but rather detained. And when Yeltsin, out of the blue, when no one expects it, says, I'm tired, I'm leaving. Or rather, he was not actually leaving, he simply stated that he was feeling quite tired at that moment. But then, what happened next in the sequence of events? It all happens just like that, in a matter of seconds, in a matter of hours. So there's no need to think that some kind of coup has to be planned. It will happen in Russia, because the way things are developing there now, the situation, everything is leading to this. All these situations are pushing the Russian regime, the elite, part of the elite, toward a coup. Even without Trump and without Ukraine. All of this will burst. It can't last forever. There has to be a climax, and it will happen soon, in the coming weeks. Just wait for it, please.
Sasha, about the aviation collapse. I saw that the relevant ministers came to Putin with a report saying the situation is catastrophic and they can't change anything. So what's happening now in the aviation industry and in the railway sector is just a shocking situation for Russia. And I'm curious, after this, will the elites be capable of doing anything, or are they satisfied with this situation?
No. If we think that after this the elites will grab rifles, Mausers, and go shoot at Putin and overthrow the government in the Kremlin, no, that's not going to happen. Yes, they are losing money. But at the same time, the people who coordinate all these flows are also losing their place in the sun, their lives, their freedom. Right now, it's basically dangerous to be a minister. At this point, it's generally dangerous to be any kind of high-ranking official responsible for one failed sector or another. And in Russia, all sectors of the Russian economy are failing, at least the civilian part of the economy. And the defense industry has come to a halt, by the way. Do they realize that they're trapped in a pit where Putin will shoot and hang them? Yes, they do. Can they do anything about it? No. Because any attempt to escape or run away will be punished by public execution. Publicly. In front of everyone. It will be an execution in front of everyone. For example, if Lavrov decides to run away, they'll kill him, hang him in public, and put him in the pillory. If Peskov shaves his mustache and tries to run away with secret documents, the same thing will happen to him. Even Mizulin won't be spared. The fundamental problem, it seems, is that Vladimir Putin initially compelled everyone to sign in blood to commence the full-scale war, and now they are effectively forced to swallow that very blood. And now they're going to drown in that blood. They'll drown in what they signed up for themselves. Because it's important to understand that Putin doesn't need any of them. The oligarchs he's already wiped out, the propagandists he's about to wipe out very soon, his own oligarchs, his wealthy associates, whom he's starting to wipe out, beginning with the Rotenbergs, his ministers, his deputies. He wants to replace them all with ordinary Russian occupiers who are completely brainless and won't make any decisions at all. And in general, he doesn't need the State Duma at all. Some senators, whom he started removing for no apparent reason, governors and vice-governors like Lishin, as well as governors and generals who profited during the border war. Everyone, all the masks are off. Do you understand? Putin has started a vendetta. Putin has started killing his own people. Now the spirit of maniac, Ivan the Terrible, Stalin, all those tyrants, has finally descended upon him. There is no other way forward. I don't envy them. All those people who supported the war, because now they will become victims of the regime they supported, the regime they nurtured and maintained all these long years.
The fact that Putin is sending the FSB to inspect ships in the ports, does he fear attacks? Or is it because after the tanker explosions, Putin ordered the FSB to thoroughly search all ships in the ports? His level of fear is off the charts. The control is no longer just military, but forceful, almost paranoid. What could be behind Putin's order to inspect every vessel? Is he afraid of sabotage, or does he simply no longer trust those closest to him, his inner circle, and the air defense?
No, look, there are two components here. First, he is, of course, afraid that there might be some kind of provocation. It's not for nothing that they've locked down all of Kamchatka, fearing that there could be some sabotage in the ports where the Pacific Fleet is stationed. It's not for nothing that there have been massive, truly large-scale special operations by Ukrainian forces and intelligence agencies in the Desantnaya Bay area, where part of the Russian Federation's Pacific Fleet is also stationed. All of this has already happened. That is precisely why Vladimir Putin fully understands the need to inspect ships, to inspect cargo, to check what is being transported, and so on and so forth. In other words, he imposed martial law. This is important. He extended martial law. So essentially, we are gradually approaching the point where Vladimir Putin might extend martial law not only to these facilities, but, for example, to civilian airports, and then to Moscow, then to St. Petersburg, and even to individual districts. A republic within a republic will be under martial law and will be sent to fight and rot for free in Ukrainian soil, or not only in Ukrainian soil. After all, the plans are Napoleonic, grand, large scale. But you see, Dasha, there's another aspect to this. As I've said and keep repeating, Russia has no money. We don't know what will happen in September. Maybe Putin will just say, there's no money, that's it. We're ending this thing called war. We don't know. But Dasha, there's an important point. Putin has no money. If Putin has no money, that means there's none for the security forces either. So he needs to find that money somewhere, because his power is built on the security forces, specifically the FSB. Not on the generals, not on the military, not on the Ministry of Emergency Situations, not on the FSB border guards, specifically on the FSB. So now everything has to go to the FSB and his own security, his personal guard, and their families. These are the three things that you know how it is. There's a budget. Let's say you have a budget. And to be successful, you have several plans, and you need to satisfy each one. Spread 30% everywhere. Keep 10% for yourself. It's the same here. Give some to the daughters, give some to the FSB, give some to the security. Keep a little for yourself, stash the rest away somewhere. That's it. Or later, take it all from everyone when the time comes. Like with Surgutneftegas, where Putin has his own separate wallet, where he has hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars hidden away in that company, untouchable for anyone in Russia, a separate gold vein just for him. Well, Dash, do you understand? There's no money. You have to get money from somewhere. How do you get it? By killing ministers, by redistributing the flows. Where do you give it to the FSB? How do you get even more money for them? You have to stick them somewhere. But where, if everything is already stuffed everywhere? Well, you're not going to kill the Rotenbergs. You're not. You're not going to completely destroy them, at least not yet. You're not going to, I don't know, destroy some other ministers. Moreover, now the destruction of Starovoid is in the memories of other ministers. You won't. What should be done? Give the FSB a feeding trough? Where can I get this feeder? It doesn't work with the airports because they are in collapse. 1,000 flights in 3 days. Everything is worth it. Where else can you get it? Well, of course, the ports, of course, cargo, transportation, shipping, of course, everything under sanctions, of course, the river fleet, of course, oil, of course, coal, of course, fertilizers, of course, food products, well, of course, export and import, well, of course, there. And what are they going to do there? Steal shamelessly from everyone who comes in and everyone who goes out. That's a good source of income. As long as it keeps working, they'll stay quiet. But when they start getting less and less money, and some keep getting richer off the war while the rest get poorer and more destitute, they'll start to wonder, give us more. But there won't be anything more to give. And then what? Then they'll stage a coup themselves and remove Vladimir Putin. Because no one seems to understand. Vladimir Putin is just an executor. He's the keeper of the common fund. He's holding other people's money, not his own. He's holding the Lubyanka's money and has always held their money. He does what they want over there. He's dependent on this monster on the KGB. He himself is a product of the KGB and was put in place by the KGB to do what the people in the KGB want. And that's exactly what he's doing. And when he can't do it anymore, they'll put in a new young promising lieutenant colonel or colonel. He won't be called Putin, but something like Hutin or something else. And once again, there will be order and stability in Russia.
Sasha, a very important question. But before that, friends, please like this video. Write a few kind words to our duo Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Share in the comments what you think about the situation overall. We'll post the viewing geography. Sasha, what is it that concerns all of us? And what will Trump do then? Because once again, we understand that in September, the Senate has to vote or not vote, and Trump has to either fly to Beijing or not. The question is, after yet another failed round of negotiations in terms of achieving a ceasefire, which is very important, what actions might Trump, our European partner, take when he sees that once again Putin has deceived him, tricked him, and so on?
Listen, there's nothing new to expect there. He said he would close the Ukrainian sky and supply Ukraine with patriots, but they won't be sent to Ukraine in just 1 week. It's a process. It's obvious that Donald Trump will supply Ukraine with weapons so that Ukraine can strike Moscow. It wasn't for nothing that he asked Zelensky, why aren't you striking? No weapons? Well, fine, I'll give them to you. Obviously, he will be preparing not just one special operation for Ukraine, a joint American-Ukrainian or American-European-Ukrainian special operation, something big and global, while Putin will be dancing in Tiananmen Square with Xi Jinping in Beijing. But the point is, this will happen. Isn't that enough? And what about the sanctions he's planning to impose? Look, the Indians are already getting nervous. Right now, negotiations between India and the US are very difficult because Trump wants to impose a 26% tariff. The Indians don't want that. And now he's saying, if you trade with Russia and buy Russian oil instead of mine or say from Guyana or somewhere else, then you'll get hit with 100% or even 126% tariff. Tell me, do the Indians even need that? No. What will they do? Will they give up Russian oil or will they buy much less of it at an even bigger discount? What will happen to Indonesia? With Indonesia and Japan, which just bought the first batch of Russian oil out of the blue, will buy it? No. Will South Korea trade there? No. And what will happen, for example, with Turkey, with the countries of the Caucasus or with the countries of Central Asia? Will they do anything? No. Will the hub in Turkey remain as it is now? No. Will the situation in the Black Sea region change? Yes. Will Russian trucks with goods be allowed to pass through Bulgaria into Turkey? Not as much. There won't be as many of them. Everything will shrink to the bare minimum. Can Putin's economy exist without all of this? No. So that's already a lot. That's already a lot. Biden, where Biden never gave Ukraine 17 Patriot systems despite all his support. This one will. We all used to joke saying, well, maybe 3 or 4 launchers. 17 full-fledged systems, 5 of them just from Switzerland. The Swiss are in shock saying, damn, we never expected this at all. There you go, just from Switzerland alone, 5 units. Germany said it will immediately transfer 2 units and so on. He'll find them and deliver. Is that not enough? Considering that he's also handling a huge... Listen, I'm not defending him. I don't like many of his decisions. I'm not a Trump supporter by nature. I'm not a Democrat, by the way. But Dash, you see, the point is this. We have to work with the administration we have. We need to appreciate what we have, and we need to work to make sure there's more, and more of it. Right now, the ball is in Putin's court, but the score is suddenly in Ukraine's favor. Yes, he shoots. Yes, he abuses. Yes, he terrorizes the ordinary Ukrainian civilian population. Everyone can see this clearly, including the Trump administration. Thank God Melania turned out to be a normal, kind-hearted woman, a lady, a first lady who helped make this visible and who now helps Trump to see and recognize all of this. But the point is that right now Putin has problems. And these problems are big. And as I said, these problems will only keep growing and escalating day by day. And that's good news. If Trump does what he promised and Congress helps him with this and Congress pushes even further, then I think Putin is in for some very, very dark days in the coming month. This August is going to be very dark and unpleasant for him. And if August is dark, then September will be the last.
Sasha, this is a very important point. You always say that most likely Trump won't fly to Beijing. But today, as I was preparing for this interview with you, I saw that Trump's special aide and Xi's aide are discussing a meeting in Beijing. So could it actually take place after all? And what kind of signal would that send to the world?
First of all, they're discussing a meeting at other events at the end of October, beginning of November, from October 30th to November 1st. That's the first thing. Second, at one of the summits, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in Beijing. Second, there could be a separate meeting in Beijing, but without Putin. They have a huge number of issues that need to be resolved. He won't be meeting as a trio there because he fully understands that it is China orchestrating Russia's war against Ukraine. That the issue with Taiwan needs to be resolved with China. The issue of global security as a whole needs to be resolved with China. The issue of Iran needs to be resolved with China. What does Russia have to do with it? Russia is making trouble, but it's not the one calling the shots. Beijing has been calling the shots for a long time now. Here, Russia is subordinate and dependent, very dependent, in fact. Let me remind you that the entire Russian Federation's piggy bank, the so-called National Wealth Fund, is in yuan. The money is in yuan, not in rubles, not in dollars, not in euros, but in yuan. Russia is completely dependent on China. China is behind all of this. And North Korea, the whole Korean situation, the Korean peninsula, all of it is directly connected to China and its decisions, to Xi's decisions. And Trump will meet with him, yes, and discuss a whole package of issues, negotiating about the global economy, about fentanyl, about Europe, about security in the Middle East and Latin America, Africa, yes, about Russia and Ukraine, about the war, about many things, about Taiwan, the Pacific region. You see, I'm listing a lot, and I could list even more and more. So why would they need Putin there? What for? So he can just be a bystander and take notes, keep track of how many more problems there are to deal with them? No. Will Putin try to cause trouble? Will he try to drive a wedge? Will he try to make sure that relations between Beijing and Washington don't improve? To drive them apart? To provoke a war between China and the US? Yes, that's what Stalin did too. They all did that. So what? Let them try. Russia hasn't been the Soviet Union for a long time. And what we're seeing now is very reminiscent of the end of Soviet rule. When the KGB, out of the blue, after removing yet another leader, tried to seize power back into its own hands, to stage a so-called rematch with the old communists, and suddenly began organizing provocations, sabotage, explosions, resistance, and revolutions on the territory of the former Soviet republics. Why does what is happening now separately in Belarus, in Ukraine, separately in Kazakhstan, separately in Armenia, Georgia, and now already in Azerbaijan remind me of what happened back then? Maybe everything we are seeing is actually not just a series of random events, but rather a large-scale campaign aimed at undermining Vladimir Putin's regime at its complete destruction. I want many people now to look at this situation from this point of view, from this perspective. To me, it seems very interesting and unusual. In any case, there is definitely something to think about.
Sasha, I want to end our stream today with a statement from Senator Lindsey Graham so you can comment on it. Putin, your turn will come. Trump is going to kick your ass. On Fox News, the American politician reminded viewers that Donald Trump intends to impose tariffs on those who buy Russian oil, primarily China, India, and Brazil, which account for about 80% of exports. He added that Trump is tired of this game. If I were in Putin's place, I would hurry to sit down at the negotiating table, Graham emphasized. What do you say?
I would say that apparently Graham really wants Putin to be gone. No one in the States is as happy about the prospect of the Putin regime collapsing, you see. As for the possibility that Putin might soon be gone, Graham, in my opinion, wants it 500%, 1,000%. He wants to push and strangle until it's done. That's what old school Cold War era mentality means, and so on. You see, Dasha, I think Graham is right. I think Putin is going to get his ass kicked. I think China is going to betray Putin. I think Washington will make a deal with China, with Beijing, behind Moscow's back. I think this will be a shock for Putin. Shock therapy, shock content, right? That's when he'll see how he was really betrayed on September 3rd. He'll be sitting there clapping on a poof in Beijing, letting off some little dragons, covering Xi Jinping's wife with a blanket like he so often likes to do. And in the end, he'll witness a major failure while being outside of Russia. Maybe he won't come back to Russia from China? Who knows? It's hard to say, but sometimes very bizarre and strange things happen in Russian history. Today there's power, tomorrow it's gone. It vanished in 3 days. Maybe this time Graham is right, and everything in Russia will collapse once again in just 3 days along with Putin. And we'll all be glad that we made it through all of this. And that once again we witnessed the collapse of a stinking empire that could have lived a normal life, but will never live normally.
Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha at Dasha plus Sasha works twice a week. We discuss top topics and events. Support us with a like, a comment, and a subscription. In the comments, let us know where you're watching from and leave a few kind words in support of our duo and the armed forces of Ukraine. Tell us what you think about the situation. Top analyst Oleksandr Demchenko. Sasha, thank you so much. And see you this Sunday.
Thank you, Dasha. See you next time. Bye.